My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. We talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, I'm pleased to have a special talent, former Oxford and recent graduate of Assumption. He'll be going to Uconn in the not too distant future. His name, Cole Chudoba. Cole, thanks so much for being able to come on, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you and talk to you again.
Yeah, man, it's been some time. I mean, I know you and I were just bantering about the fact, a couple years ago, you were playing for the Bravehearts, I was broadcasting for the Blues, and it was weird because seeing you pitch for the Bravehearts, and then not even a few years prior to that, I was seeing you pitch against the Naugatuck Greyhounds when I was coaching. I was their pitching coach for Legion, and just to see the growth from you physically, mentally, it's great to see, and it just shows how much your body and just your mind can change in just a short amount of time.
Yeah, no, it's definitely crazy. Going from high school to college. You realize once you get to college, kids are a lot better, and you're no longer the big dog anymore. So you really got to work hard. So I mean, that's like my advice to anyone. Kids get better, but as long as you work hard and there's a lot of potential in you, and kind of set your goals. And that was what my mindset was going into college.
There's a lot of stuff we're going to get into in the next few minutes as far as, before, the present, the future, with everything with your career and such. But I want to go to the past first. Kind of, how did the game of baseball find Cole Chadoba?
Yeah, so baseball, honestly, I would say I was kind of a late bloomer with baseball. I was a huge basketball guy growing up my whole life. Like that was my number one favorite sport. I played all the way through high school. My goal was to play in college, D3, D2 didn't matter. That's like was my mindset. And then my junior year, actually, I broke my foot in basketball, and I kind of just like kind of played through the season, didn't really think much of it. But then I had to get surgery on it and get a bone removed out of my foot, so it was kind of tough. And coming back from recovery from that, I just kind of like wasn't the same. And then I always wanted to play sports in college, so that's when I always played baseball because I was kind of decent at it. I enjoyed it, but then once I realized like I want to play in college, that was my mindset. I just kind of started focusing on pitching, and I love the competitiveness of being a pitcher. That kind of like what I can get similar to basketball. So I kind of just took up pitching, and I love that it's like kind of on me in that moment, and just it's me against the batter. So I'm a very competitive person, so I enjoy that about pitching the most.
Do you think that playing, because you played basketball and kind of stuck with that as long as you could, kind of helped your development as an athlete because you didn't get so burned out playing one sport for the entire length of your career?
Yeah, no, I definitely think. I mean, playing basketball and not, I mean, obviously I had a lot of not as much wear and tear on my arms, so that was kind of helpful with me. But I think just playing basketball helped me in baseball. I think playing multiple sports, a lot of kids focus on just playing one sport nowadays, but I think it's super beneficial to play multiple sports growing up. You learn so much from different games and a lot of athletic ability, but just there's so many different avenues and parts of playing different sports and how you react in certain situations. So I think the more well-rounded you are, it can just benefit you in whatever sport you choose to play in college or stop playing at a certain age.
Now, if I remember right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but did you play first base as far as, because I remember Legion Ball, I thought, did you play first?
Yeah, I played first base when I wasn't pitching. So
Okay. So when did the pitching side, because I'm sure you played both positions for some time, when did pitching kind of become your main position to play on the baseball diamond?
I would say like my sophomore end of like my sophomore year of high school going into junior year. I had a pretty good year my sophomore year of high school baseball, and that's kind of when I started to realize I was like, hey, maybe I'm a little bit better than I thought I was at this because I was a pitcher growing up, but never really took it too serious. And I don't know, I kind of just like started to fall in love with it again, just going back to that competitive nature. And then
Hmm.
I just kind of started to focus on it junior, mostly junior going into senior year when I kind of decided when I was trying to rehab and I was like, all right, basketball's not gonna work for my body. So that's kind of when I just took on pitching. And so I kind of just took it in stride.
Well, think about it too. In basketball, you're burning 2, 3, 4,000 calories a game, depending on how much you're playing. And with baseball and especially pitching, you need all the weight possible, especially for a kid like yourself who was growing. You need to have strong legs. Not to say that running is not a bad, it's a good thing, especially for a pitcher. But I feel like to transition to playing baseball and focusing on that, it allowed you to keep the weight on yourself a lot better rather than burning it all on the court.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. Basketball, you definitely have to be in some really good cardio shape. You're a lot slimmer, but kind of like focusing on baseball is like I started to put on good weight and kind of like focus on getting in the gym and didn't have to worry as much about cardio. I mean, obviously make sure everyone you're still in decent shape, but yeah, so I kind of got to lift more and kind of not have to worry about that as much. So that was, I think, also helped me in my pitching career. So
Now, looking at looking at the basketball side again, I know I called a couple of your games, broadcasting for the radio and for TV and such, and knowing how competitive you are, and I understand that Oxford basketball of late has been getting better; it's been improving. But when you were playing, it was tough. I mean, there were some tough games that you had to endure. So, how did you handle that mentally?
yeah, no, it's tough, especially basketball. Not winning, a lot of games all the time. I think we had 7 wins my senior year, but honestly, the best part about playing basketball is I was playing with some of my best friends too. We grew up playing the sport, and we knew NBL is a very tough conference, and we were kind of new to it because my sophomore year we switched over to the NBL. So obviously there were some tough games, but basketball you're always in the action. So whether you're winning or losing, at least you can kind of like try and make an impact on the game, and that's where the competitive nature of it is. No matter what the score is, you can always give it your 100% effort on both sides of the floor. If you're not scoring, you can play defense. So.
No, it definitely had help, and the competitive part. I feel like it kind of allowed you in some ways. Not to say, I know we talked about how with the Bravehearts, how that was kind of like your first struggle as far as playing baseball as much as you have. But I feel like because of the struggles that you had, not you specifically, but the team, it kind of tested you and allowed you to see this is what could happen in baseball and allowed you to be able to to go through that over time.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, the things you go through, they can either break you down or make you stronger. But if you look at it in the mindset, you go through these hard times and then, it'll get better in the end. I believe if you really put the work in, things will get better. But you're definitely going to hit adversity on the way of whatever you're doing. So you just got to kind of like push through it, but it only makes you tougher in the end. So that's how I looked at it.
Now, as we transition over to you playing baseball and focusing on that and such, I know Oxford, even going back to, again, when I was coaching and then even prior, I heard about Oxford baseball and how there was a lot of talent. I remember playing against them for Legion, way back when I was playing Legion ball. And there was something about Oxford Legion that they never had any, at least when I was playing, there was never any flashy names, never any kids who kind of wowed you. But it just seemed like they knew how to play the game and they seemed like a blue collar kind of team. Was that the same thing when you were coming through the high school ranks?
Yeah, no, I mean, I got to give a huge shout out to Coach Brian Horgan. He kind of instilled that in us, that blue collar mentality. We didn't have the most talented team out there, but we all got along together. We all kind of just had that one common goal, and we didn't need to be the flashiest team out there. Like we were just gonna go win. We were gonna beat you down, and we were gonna play small ball and do what we have to do to beat you. And that was our game. And when everyone kind of buys into it, I mean, this is like a cliche term, but when everyone buys into something and truly believes in it, you can find a lot of success. And, we, again, weren't the most talented team out there, but we just found a way to win. And I have to give Coach Horgan a huge shout out for all that because he was amazing for all of us in high school. So.
Now, when did you, because I'm assuming, like, when did you get named the ace as far as on the staff?
Yeah, so I wasn't the ace the beginning of my sophomore year of high school, and then maybe like halfway through, I kind of like started to take over as the ace. And then towards the end of the year, I was like pretty much, the clear cut number one. And I kind of just held that role through the rest of high school. But yeah, I'd say probably about the halfway point of sophomore year, I kind of took over that role.
So do you think because I know some players can't handle being told, even if their coach says, "Hey, you're the ace." You can take it one of two ways. You can be arrogant and cocky and take things for granted, or it could kind of push you and say, "All right, now I have this target on my back. I need to make sure I prove it. So I have to do it in the weight room. I have to do it doing polls. I have to do all these things to kind of show." How did you handle the pressure of being told, "You're the ace, you're our horse, take us to the promised land"?
Yeah, no, I mean, I took it, and I didn't even want to just prove it to everyone else. I wanted to also like prove it to myself that if you put the work in, I felt like I put myself in that position, and I just want to do whatever I can do for my team, and I want to be that leader. I'm not a huge rah rah guy out there. I'm kind of just go out there. I'm quiet. I do my job. So, especially being a sophomore, kind of a young kid, I wanted to show these older guys like, hey, like you can rely on me, you can lean on me, and I'm gonna put us in a position to win, no matter if I'm, one of the younger kids on the team. So that's kind of the mindset I took it as. Is I just, I was ready to do whatever I had to do to help the team. So.
What when was it did you feel like the game started to become comfortable for you, where things started to slow down? And what I mean by that is when you're younger, everything speeds up, everything is quick, your mind's racing. But as you go through the repetitions, it starts to slow down and you start seeing things that you didn't when you were younger. So for you, just speaking specifically on the mound, when did you realize that, oh, this game, I'm starting to now see it full picture, not just in a small, little circle?
Yeah, I would say definitely towards like the end of my sophomore year and then going into my junior year, kind of like taking over that ace role. Obviously, is a little up and down sometimes, but that's kind of going through the experience of it. But yeah, I would say towards the end of that year, I kind of like my confidence was probably the highest it's been in my baseball career. And then
Mhm.
going into that junior year, like I was like, wow, like this is the bigger picture now, and you pick up on so many things you didn't realize before. You just become kind of like a student of the game at that point. You're kind of just you're playing at that point until you really like truly understand and see that bigger picture, and you become so much smarter at the game. Things are so much smoother for you, and you don't really feel that pressure anymore. You kind of just go out there and you're like, this is my job, I got to do, and that's it.
And with all the success that you were having towards the end of your sophomore, and then obviously what you did junior and senior year, when did the when did the idea of, oh, I can take this, I know I can play college baseball, when did that kind of come through your head?
I would say probably not until my junior year that kind of popped into my head. I was still kind of stuck on basketball like sophomore year, but junior year, once I realized I had the end of my sophomore year and kind of preparing for junior year, I was like, all right, this is something, I can do, and kind of started to fall in love with it at that point. And, just the process of, preparing every week, you get your start, it was one start a week and you have the whole week to prep for it. You got to do whatever you got to do. And I kind of just enjoyed that process. I thought it was so methodical at that point and just like, figuring things out, what works for me and not. So I kind of just started to fall in love with the process.
And how was that process as far as going through finding a college? Because it's, just talking with various players that I have throughout this whole time I've been doing this podcast, the stories are great, but I can only imagine behind the scenes, the stress, the wondering, the talking to all the coaches, especially, having to go through a season and for some not even knowing where you're going to play your college football, basketball, baseball, etc. So how was that for you?
Yeah, the recruiting process was actually very memorable for me. It was kind of crazy. So I had that surgery we kind of talked about. So I was in a cast for a while. So like I started to get recruited like junior year. That was kind of like the big year.
Mhm.
And I was in a cast after that season. So all summer I couldn't walk and go see schools or anything like that. So, and I was still kind of up in the air about basketball and baseball. So it was kind of weird. I was visiting some schools for basketball, some for baseball. So I was like, I kind of knew in my head I was going to play baseball at that point. But yeah, I remember once I could walk, it was me and my dad went, I think it was 5 straight weekends going to visit schools. It was pretty cool. Like, we got really close throughout the process. But yeah, so it was pretty crazy. It happened all very fast because I was kind of late to the game. So
If I know one thing about your dad, and I'm sure he doesn't know me, but I just know in the short time of just listening to him at broadcasts at Muzzy Field or for the games that when I was coaching for Naugatuck, competitive guy, loves the game and loves you. That's all. I know that for a fact.
yeah, no, he's been my biggest role model my whole life, someone I truly look up to. He's always had my back, and we've gotten very close through sports. He's always helped me out, like whenever I was younger, if I like, hey dad, we need to go play catch, or hey, could we shoot around, you want to rebound for me? He never hesitated. So he's been one of the most influential people in my entire life, and he truly cares about me and truly cares about the team. Like he loved all the kids growing up. He's super close with all my best friends back home. So he's an amazing father figure, and I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him.
Is he catching the heater now? Because you could throw a little bit harder than what you did back in the day.
Yeah, no, he's done playing catch with me anymore. So those days are over, but they were fun while they lasted.
Oh yeah, I mean, at some point, it's like, Dad, you've caught enough. Sit down. Let me have someone who can catch my heater a little bit more.
Yeah, no, he I think it was sometime in high school, he kind of passed it on. He's like, I'm done with this anymore. He's not seeing as well, getting a little bit older. He's like, I'm not going through this anymore. He's like, go find someone else. So
That's fine. I'm sure it's very easy for you to find somebody. You got everybody back home.
yeah, exactly. So I have a lot of guys back here I could play catch with and stuff. So I don't really struggle with that.
That's great, man. So you found Assumption. You found the school that you felt like would be the perfect fit for you. So your freshman year, how was that? Because the adjustment must have been for anybody. It's huge, either off the field or on the field.
Yeah, so crazy story. So my brother actually went to it. He was playing at Assumption when I was a freshman. He was a senior there. So
Right.
that was kind of how I had the connection to Assumption. So I knew Coach Rocco. He kind of knew my family and he recruited me. So it was kind of a good situation to go into. Again, kind of a comfortable thing, kind of having a little bit of an idea. I've met some guys on the team before.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, my freshman year, I was named a starter. I was the fourth starter at the beginning of the year. So I got to start our first weekend series. And honestly, my freshman year was a lot of ups and downs. The beginning of the year, I honestly struggled a pretty good amount, kind of just figuring out college baseball, realizing you can't just throw a fastball down the middle. It's going to get by someone, figuring you need to pick the zone and everything. But I kind of towards the end of the year, I started to figure it out. And I had some pretty good quality starts and kind of just carried that momentum going forward into my sophomore year of college. But I was pretty fortunate enough to be a little more comfortable than some guys, having my brother there to obviously help me out and kind of take me under his wing. But yeah, it was a lot of ups and downs, but I'm very thankful for all of it. So
I can't speak to how important, how great that is that you had a family member, let alone your brother, there to kind of, like you mentioned, he took you under his wing, and kind of, like you said, you had struggles as any pitcher does their freshman year. I don't care how great. I mean, Jack Leiter, Al Leiter's kid, last time I checked, I don't know what happened of late, but he was struggling in an elimination game. He typically never walks anybody. He walked in a run. I think he had 3 walks in the first inning. So there's going to be struggles. And I think to have someone like that there, helps your development so much because your freshman year, people don't realize that could be a make or break because you're second guessing. You're coming, especially for you, coming out of the NVL, you're winning all these awards, all state, all NVL, et cetera, so on and so forth, having all this success. Then you come to college and it's like, oh crap, this is different. And then you start second guessing. And that's the most dangerous thing, as you know, as a pitcher. Once the mind goes and you start second guessing, everything else goes out the window.
yeah, no, pitching is extremely mental. I mean, obviously physical helps if you're physically gifted, it helps, but it's such a mental game. And he was a starter too, so I kind of that even helped even more because we were kind of in the same role. So he would help me out a little bit. But yeah, pitching you can't second guess yourself no matter how good or bad it's going. You might not have your best stuff that day, but you just have to be confident in yourself and make adjustments, do what you have to do. But yeah, you never want to lose sight of who you are as a pitcher and what got you to the situation that you're in right now. So,
What were some of the struggles your freshman year that kind of stood out? Was it holding base runners? Was it your second? I know you mentioned your fastball, but basically not throwing it down the middle. But what were some of the things that you felt like, oh, I need to change this, otherwise I'm not going to last long in this game?
yeah, I would say I threw like a curveball kind of slurve in high school.
Yeah.
But I realized that I couldn't just throw that pitch and I really had to work on it. So I kind of developed a slider after that. Um, but yeah, I'd say that was the biggest thing was my off speed and throwing my changeup. Like I didn't have to throw my changeup as much in high school, and just advice to any younger pitcher out there: throw your changeup as much as you can because it is such a lethal pitch, especially in college baseball. But I think again, it was just working on all of my pitches, but mostly that slider, trying to find that kind of strikeout pitch for me. Like I always threw strikes, and I never really walked a lot of guys, but I was getting hit around pretty good at some points in the beginning of my freshman year. So I would say that was the biggest thing was finding that, that off speed that I could strike someone out with and finish someone off.
So it sounds like to me, Cole, that you mentioned how you weren't walking a lot of people, but you were around the zone. You were throwing in some ways, you were throwing strikes, but they weren't quality strikes. And because you were around the zone so much, you were very hittable. But if you had that third pitch, which was the changeup, as you mentioned, even if you didn't get strikeouts, you induce weak contact, low exit velocity, you stay in the game a lot longer because of your low pitch count.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like that's developing that changeup and that slider for me. I didn't strike a lot of guys out once I figured out, towards the end of my freshman year, but I got that weak contact once I started to figure things out. And I was like, all right, I don't need to strike everybody out, but I need to make quality pitches. And like you said, quality strikes and just get weak contact. Like I was just a skinny little freshman kid and I had to realize what my strengths were at the moment and what I had to do to be successful. And that's kind of exactly how you said it. I just figured out I got a lot of weak contact.
Skinny freshman, and then you start to grow. You start to grow lengthwise, height wise. You start to get some muscle, and then you find the Worcester Bravehearts. How did that, like, take me into that? How did you find this successful franchise program, whatever you want to call it? Because they've been like the FCBL. Everybody else in that team, like, as far as the FCBL is concerned, like the Worcester Bravehearts are here. They are the Yankees of the FCBL.
Yeah, no, they're an amazing organization. But playing in Worcester, obviously that's like that connection right there, playing for the city. So my sophomore year, I had a really pretty good year. I think my sophomore year, I think I made the all conference team, third team or something like that. And the Bravehearts had some of their guys come check me out at like a couple of my starts and stuff. And then I got offered a contract to go play for them. And there was no question once I got that contract, I was super excited to go play for them. Like I just heard all about them. I've never been to a game, but when you go to school in Worcester and you play baseball, that's like one of the cool things everyone talks about, the Worcester Bravehearts. So they're an awesome organization. So as soon as I got that offer for the contract, there was no hesitation. I was like, I need to go play for them.
We alluded to earlier, and we talked, before we started the interview, about the struggles that you had. And I had an opportunity to be able to do one of your games, and mind you, it was raining. It was a part of a doubleheader. Funny enough, I don't know if you remember, Jack Moynihan threw a no hitter in Game 2.
Yeah, I do remember that. That was a crazy day. I remember we thought we weren't gonna play for a while. We were all like sitting around, and then it was raining, and the rain didn't really come. And then we were like, "All right, we're gonna play too." And yeah, that was a crazy day. But yeah, that no hitter was wild. He pitched an amazing game, and he was only a kid that was just going into his freshman year of college at the time. And so
Yeah.
I'm super happy for him.
Funny story too about that. Not that I don't know if anybody would care. I've called two no hitters in my broadcast career, both 7 inning games. So coincidental is that?
Hey, maybe you're just a good luck charm for a pitcher, you know?
Yeah, right. For 7 inning game, not for nine though. Nine's too much.
Yeah,
Many people don't want to hear my voice for 9 innings.
yeah.
But to go to what I was trying to allude to before we got off subject, my apologies. But I just, the struggles that you had, and we talked about what kind of your freshman year at Assumption. Now, did those same struggles come back up in Worcester, or was it something completely different?
No, I say it's a little bit different. I think I was such a high at that point. My sophomore year, so we also made the regional too for the first time in like 10 years at Assumption. So we were at such a high, and I felt really confident. And when I got to the Bravehearts, I think I just thought I could kind of like in that time I was like, oh, I could throw it by anyone. Like I had a really good year and kind of just not got a little bit lazy, but kind of got complacent at that point and thought my stuff was good enough. But you're playing against kids that are, there's some kids from some big D1 schools. All the D3 guys are legit guys that can play at any other conference at Division 1 schools. So I kind of just had to learn how to pitch. And I always talk about that summer made me realize I'm not just a thrower anymore and I need to become a pitcher. So that was the best thing that ever happened in my career is I went from such a high and then I was, at a pretty low at some points. It was very up and down year, but I took it like, all right, this is what I need to work on, and I need to make myself a pitcher and not just a thrower. And some people you can get really down from that, and you can't lose your confidence as a pitcher. But I just kind of took it in the inside, kind of gave me a little chip on my shoulder, and I never worked harder in my life going from the end of that sophomore into the junior year.
It's funny that you mentioned about going from a thrower to a pitcher because I had on a young man who's now in the Mariners organization. He played for Bethel Legion, last name Wilcox. He played at Bryant, was drafted by the Mariners, and we actually talked about the whole, when did you become a pitcher from a thrower? And he said, I don't like to use that term. He said, I went from a thrower to a competitor to a pitcher. And what he meant was that as a thrower, obviously You don't have any command. You're kind of just throwing the baseball. Basically your talent, your pure ability is getting you by. But then he said when he transitioned from a thrower to a competitor, that's when it was trying to, like you mentioned, trying to figure things out, trying to command the strike zone, trying to find who you are. Then he said once he was able to, tame that, then he became a pitcher. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, that totally like makes sense. And it's kind of similar. I agree. In my situation is my sophomore year, like I was throwing way harder. I topped out at 90 my freshman year of college. And then sophomore year, I was up to 95 I topped out at. So I was just kind of throwing hard and thinking that could work. But yeah, I agree. It kind of transitioned from a competitor to a pitcher. So I kind of agree with that process. But yeah, so it's similar to my growth is kind of his situation.
So with the Worcester Bravehearts, and I know obviously for people who may not know, they won the FCBL championship. They beat the Bristol Blues, and a best out of three. They beat them in both games, game one and game two. Game two being at Muzzy Field. And I understand obviously the following, because of everything with COVID and all that. Do you think because of going through all of that, it not only allowed you to treasure because of what happened before COVID, but the fact that you were able to have at least finish strong as far as yourself the end of that summer.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously with COVID happening, it made you have a newfound appreciation for playing the game of baseball. Not even just the game of baseball, just life in general. I mean, so many horrific things happen to a lot of people, and it kind of just gave me a newfound appreciation to really, understand what I'm doing and how much joy it brings me. It brings my family. It brings, my other teammates. So having a successful end of the year kind of just put me in a really good mindset and kind of just made me want to work harder going forward. So
So, take me into, and Cole, I really appreciate you coming on. Take me into kind of the path as far as COVID strikes, season's done. You're just, there's a lot of time that you're not used to having. Baseball, for probably the first time since you were a kid, you can't do much, there's not much to do. So, how did you, and I know, and again, talking with a lot of the high school athletes, how, how much mentally it was, how straining it was on them. And it's been straining on everybody, but just looking at the athletes. So, how did you push through that, but also at the same time, make sure that your talent did not dip, that you used the process and used the positive time that you had in a good way?
yeah, I mean, it was definitely a lot of adjustments and kind of finding new ways to get things done. A lot of workouts at home because gyms weren't open. So you kind of had to get very creative in what you were doing. And like I would go to the high school and I remember I'd set up like a tire contraption and pretend to be like a batter's box. I would get the L screen behind it. So I kind of just had to get creative because, sometimes we weren't really seeing people at the beginning of it. So I was just kind of by myself. So I would, go up there myself, throw, for an hour, hour and a half, kind of get my work in, get my running in. And just, thankfully, I have some dumbbells at home, some weights. So, it was definitely different, but I was so focused on, I had summer ball coming up. I was supposed to go to Wilmington. That's another story, but yeah, I was getting ready for that. And I was just kind of in the mindset like I'm thankful that I even get this opportunity to play summer ball because so many leagues were shut down. The Cape Cod League canceled, the NECBL canceled. So I was one of the few leagues that was still planning to kind of have summer ball. So it motivated me to work even harder because I was in such a unique and thankful situation to be able to have the chance to play summer ball. So kind of just did what I had to do, and it was obviously tough and not ideal, but as athletes, you hit adversity like we talked about earlier, and it's kind of how you respond from it. So just gotta like push through and get ready and kind of have a positive outlook on things.
And you've been able to push through. I mean, the amount of success that you've had and being able to go through. I mean, and I know we mentioned earlier about you going to UConn. You graduated from Assumption. Grad being able to have an opportunity. How did UConn become a reality? How did they come about to you?
Yeah, so I came back from the Worcester Bravehearts for a second summer after I went to Wilmington for 2 days. We got canceled, so the Bravehearts were having a summer ball season. So I went there, and I didn't really have any inclination of going into the transfer portal or doing a fifth year anywhere else. Kind of at that point, I was just kind of focused on Assumption, but I started to get a little bit of attention at that point, and I got some Major League Scouts started to look at me a little bit, and kind of talking to my family, we were like, it might be, a good decision to go into the transfer portal and see if I could play at a higher level. Assumption was great for me, and I'm so thankful for my experiences, but you always want to play the best, and that was the goal. So I kind of went in the transfer portal, and it's kind of like free agency is how I describe it. Like schools just like start reaching out to you, and you start talking to them, get a feel of what role they want you to be in. So I started talking to Uconn after I was in the transfer portal, and I talked to Coach Mack a lot. He's a really, really good guy, the pitching coach there, Coach McDonald. And it was a really good fit for me, being from Connecticut, getting to play for university in your home state, kind of have, your family and your friends be able to see you. It's a lot shorter of a drive than driving to Worcester for them. So, I like the situation I'm going into there. They're a very competitive team. And, I just want to go in and, do my role and help them win some games.
And with the plethora of amount of MLB talent that they've had, or even just draft talent, I mean, you think about all the players from Barnes and Springer, the Connecticut kids going in as far as potentially in the next couple of years. If Mazzucato goes there, I mean, we were talking about he's number 51 right now in Baseball America. He may not even last past the first round if he keeps pitching like this. And Daniels from St. Paul. There's a young man at Coggenshaw. There's so much talent. I mentioned this actually to the Coggenshaw player that I had on, that UConn is finding the Connecticut talent and they're staying. They're not going out to the SEC or the Big Ten or the AAC. They're staying in Connecticut, and I think that's why you're seeing so much success the last couple years of UConn baseball.
Yeah, no, I agree. UConn does a really good job at recruiting, and it's kind of gives a shout out to Connecticut as and in general as the talent that comes through. I mean, a lot of people don't look at Connecticut as a perennially baseball state and a ton of talent, but there's some really good guys in this state, and UConn's doing a really good job at giving them a platform for them to be seen and kind of show off their talents. And a lot of kids too. It's always a dream. You want to go play for your university. At your home state, and they have a brand new stadium too, which is awesome. I don't know if you've seen it. It's super nice. So I think they're both doing a great job. The kids are really getting their notice, and it's working well because they're winning some games. So
Now, I want to talk to you about now. You said that you talked to a couple MLB scouts, correct?
yeah, I that summer I didn't really talk to any like my sophomore year. I kind of hit 95, got a little bit of buzz, but nothing too serious. But after my junior year, the shortened season, I had a pretty good year. Still a little bit of buzz, nothing really serious. And then
Mm-hmm.
when I went for the Bravehearts that summer, we were really like the only league playing in the North. Our Coastal Plains had a couple teams playing, but they just played each other. And then the Northwoods, I think, had some teams still playing. But being in the Northeast, we were pretty much the Cape Cod League of the summer. So there was really good talent. There was a lot of scouts out there, and I had a pretty good summer. And probably the situation or game that put me on the map was I broke the Futures League record for strikeouts in a game. So I had 15 strikeouts in a game, and that's kind of when I per se kind of put my name out there and started to get some interest from teams and stuff.
So I think the fact that you were able to have a season, first off, I understand you drove basically 2 full days, day and a half to not to be told, hey, you're not going to have a season, then come back. I think for Worcester to be able to allow you to, I shouldn't say allow, but to say, hey, come back, you are welcome, to give you an opportunity, open the door for, I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but for UConn to see you, but also for Major League Scouts to see, hey, there's a kid who's at Assumption, pretty good, throws 95 plus, and has some pretty good breaking stuff. Let's see what he can do. And for you to be able to do what you did in the summer, I feel like if you didn't have that, not to say you wouldn't be where you are now, but it would have been more difficult because as we're seeing and as I saw from college coaches on the football side, all of them that I talked to said, we want to take kids from Connecticut, but we're not seeing film. We need film.
Yeah, no, I that summer was the best thing that's ever happened for my career, and I also thank the Bravehearts, Coach Dion, Coach TK, and Coach Chase for taking me back. Because again, we talked about I kind of had my struggles, so it's not like I was, their number one guy coming back. But they wanted me to come back. They were super awesome, took me with open arms, and I wanted to prove to them too at that point going into that summer that like, hey, like I promise you, like some of the ups and downs I had, like I'm not gonna have that this summer, and that was the chip on my shoulder going in there, and I was like, hey, these are some of the top kids. I might not get a situation like this again, so I'm going to make the most of it. And it definitely helped my career and propelled my career. And I don't think I agree with you. I wouldn't be in this situation if I didn't play that summer.
Now, before you go to UConn, for people who may not know, will you be playing summer ball?
Yeah, I will be playing summer ball. So I'm going to play for the Bourne Braves in the Cape Cod League. I'm leaving June 12th or June 13th, and opening day is June 20th for us.
So, what are the chances? And I know you can't predict the future, not trying to put pressure on you, but the draft is going to be in July. And if your name is called, now, have you even thought about that? Like, if it's this round, I'm definitely going. But if it's this round, or if it's around the wherever, it's you know what? I think I'm gonna go to you. Like, have you even thought about that, or is it just like, you know what? I'm taking every day like it is. I'm just going out there to pitch, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some, small conversations like that with my family, but I don't like to look at it like that. I kind of have the mindset where I'm taking it every single day by day, and I think everything will happen the way it's supposed to. Whether it's, I'm fortunate enough to get drafted or going to play at UConn. Like, either situation's a great one for me, and I'm super excited for the future. But I'm just going out there working hard every single day, and I truly believe everything's going to happen the way it's supposed to, and just gonna kind of let fate decide.
Now, hypothetically, if you do get drafted, what do you think, your first, and if you do and you end up deciding to go, I want to make sure I send this to you and to have you be like, oh, you predicted this. You did, not me, you did. But what do you think your first reaction, because I'm sure you're going to be either playing a game or it's going to be after a game, depending on when you play or before. So what do you think your first reaction would be?
I mean, probably a little bit of just like kind of shock, just like wow, like this is actually happening. That'll probably be my initial reaction. Then I'll just be super excited and thankful. Definitely call my family up and talk to them, and I wouldn't be here without all of them. So I think if it does happen, this year, could happen next year, it doesn't happen at all. Like whatever happens, I've just been truly thankful for the journey I've had to even get in this situation. A lot of highs and lows, and it's all made me stronger in the end. So I think I'd be more appreciative of how I got here. Probably in that moment, that would be my initial reaction.
Cole, I wish you nothing but the best of luck as far as in the summer, as well as either if you decide to go, if you get drafted and decide to go to the pros or go to UConn. I think wherever you choose, man, I think whatever organization, program, they will be very grateful to have you. And I think you'll be a prime role model for the summer who I hope will try to say, hey, we have this Connecticut kid who he's a good human being. Let's put you out there. And I hope that they do that because you're a good kid.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. Just a message to all the kids out there looking for colleges and stuff. Doesn't matter what division you go to. A lot of kids get wrapped up and I need to go to this big time school. But if you find a place that's good for you, find a place you're gonna play that's a great school academically. Like biggest advice I got was if you weren't playing a sport, would you be comfortable with the school you're at? So, everything's gonna happen for a reason. And if you really have aspirations, people will find you. So that's just one thing I wanted to say to all the kids in Connecticut out there.
Words of wisdom from Cole Chudoba, and I'm sure you have a lot of wisdom that you could give to the kids in Connecticut who I think in baseball, basketball, football, they need to hear it. And I think from a player like yourself who is as talented and has the amount of rapport with young and older kids, I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And you having me on the podcast to even talk about this and just, all those kids out there, just keep working. Everything's going to happen the way it's supposed to. And, if you hit a low point, just keep working hard and be confident in who you are and how you got to where you are. So that's the biggest thing. That's what I've learned throughout this journey.
It was a pleasure to be able to have you on, man, because hey, you gave me the time of day when I was talking to you a couple years ago and even before, because a lot of kids who get as high as they do with all the accolades, sometimes it gets to their head and they don't even, they become a different person. But I've noticed with you, you've stayed who you were from the time from Legion all the way till now. You know the humble attitude, the because you could very easily be like, hey, I throw 95 plus, I have this opportunity. You could be cocky and be this, you know what, but you've stayed true to who you are, and it's admirable and something that should be shown to everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. It's a really nice compliment and something that means a lot to me to hear that. And, I always just kind of know my roots. Like, no matter where I am and where I've gotten to, I know where I started, and that's not going to change. The people I was around, person I am, no matter how successful I could be in anything, baseball, life, just never forget your roots.
Man, best of luck the rest of the way. Stay in touch. All right.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it.
No problem. That wraps things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm out journey and find them all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and be well.